Hello, thank you very much. Welcome to the show. Yeah, here we are. Here we are. Thank you so much for coming. Are you having a nice night so far? Yeah, here we are. What an incredible venue this is. It's lovely to be back at Wilton's Music Hall. My name is Steve Pretty, as I'm sure you know from the show title. I do this podcast called Steve Pretty on the Origin of the Pieces, which I started a few months ago. I don't know if presumably some of you listen, maybe not all of you, but some of you maybe know me from other things. Hackney Colliery Band / being in my family / being in my friend / other stuff I do. But here, yes, I am. Tonight is a kind of odd but very fun and interesting, I hope, evening of music and chat and exploration and all sorts of stuff. So we started there with a project that I have been doing with my friend Valeria for the last year or so. I'm going to give Valeria a mic because I'm going to talk to Valeria shortly. So I'm just going to turn that on for you. Welcome to the show. We're going to have, it's going to be a very varied evening. So strap in. I hope you're ready for that. I mean, I say that, obviously it started with a sort of slightly awkward pause while I waited for the house music to go down, and then I played the shell for about 10 minutes. So I didn't really need to tell you that it was going to be a slightly odd, varied evening today. So yeah, so it's going to be that. There's going to be a bit more shell, don't worry, / apologies. So there's going to be some more of that. We've got all sorts of incredible guests. There's going to be a lot of really interesting chat, I hope. Speaking of which, I'm going to talk to my very first guest for the evening. But before I do that, I just wanted to explain a little bit about why I started the podcast in the first place and why I started sort of exploring this thing about the origin of the pieces. Because obviously it's a slightly obtuse pun on The Origin of the Species by Charles Darwin, of course. And the idea is that I'm just endlessly fascinated as a musician by where music comes from, what it is, and kind of why it exists in the first place, really. I'm a professional musician. I spend almost my entire life playing really weird noises at the back of the garden, and occasionally some nice ones, and some popular ones to people as well. But I have a shed at the back of the garden with all sorts of musical toys in, and I do a lot of live performance, of course, with my band Hackney Colliery Band and all sorts of other projects. But it's a very odd way to spend your life as an adult man, or indeed woman, sort of just making silly noises and people occasionally paying you for them. And so it's always been nagging at the back of my mind as to why we are so obsessed with this as a species, because it's one of the very few things that does unite humanity. I've talked in the podcast a bit in the past about how actually I don't think music is a universal language. I think one of the great things about it is that it's lots of different languages that have some commonalities to one another, but actually what's really fantastic about it is that it's really varied and it's really rich for its variety. But all cultures on earth do have music, and so why is that? So the show kind of explores that, and we'll be exploring that a little bit tonight. But we also look at all sorts of different genres. I do this thing called the genre tombola, which I'm going to touch on a little bit tonight, where I try and make a piece of music in an entirely different genre, randomly picked for me by the internet every week, which with mixed results. We kind of touch on lots of bases. So, speaking of which, we're going to talk to Valeria, who's actually already been a guest on the podcast. I know.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Valeria the harp. Let's give it up for Valeria.
Thank you for having me.
So we met. Speaking of variety, we met doing a hip hop project. It's the obvious place for a trumpet player and a harp player to meet, isn't it? But yeah, we met doing a sort of instrumental hip hop project a few years ago, and we just kind of hit it off. And we've done a few shows. We did a few shows together, and then we just kind of really enjoyed the very unusual combination, I think, of harp and trumpet. And here we are.
Yeah. What
was it that appealed to you about, like? Because I think it might. Because I asked you initially to do some stuff as a duo. And then I remember a couple of, was it last year, I think, I'd asked you for a couple of specific gigs. And then you said to me, which you may have lived to regret, we should do this more often and make it a thing.
I don't regret that.
You don't regret that? Good. Here we are. And so what was it that kind of appealed to you about the combination of those things?
Well, with you, the whole experimental nature of your music and the whole approach to it. So yeah, there's no another Steve Pretty out there. So
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But can we just talk for a second about the harp? So we've been over the harp a little bit in the past in the show, but can we now we've got this beautiful instrument in front of us. Can you just explain a little bit about how it works? I know you've done
Sure.
this
So this is the biggest harp you can get. It's called an orchestral pedal harp. Because I have 7 pedals hidden behind here, 3 on one side and 4 on the other. So the pedals, basically they change the pitch of each of the strings and they change the same note simultaneously. For example, this is D and D flat. And then if I move the pedal without even plucking the string, you can hear that kind of effect. So you can do some sort of, glisses and effects with the pedals as well. And yes, so it's 47 strings, 7 pedals. What else?
7 pedals. I think this is the thing that I didn't quite clock when I started working with harp, and particularly writing music for harp. You have to write for pedals, which, I'm a man who likes my sort of, effects pedals, but not harp pedals, and so I'm not used to kind of writing, knowing how to, when you need to change notes.
Yeah, not many composers really do.
Can you show us, like, can you play something, whether it's a scale or a piece that has some of the most fancy footwork?
Oh, you should have given me some notice. Oh. And also, I'm not wearing a proper boots for that.
Harp boots.
The most pedally bit, but you kind of you should have given me more notice.
But the point is, when you play the pedals, as you just demonstrated, that shifts the whole tuning of the harp, right?
It does. Well, the little pegs on this side of the harp, they turn with each movement of the pedal. There's 3, and then they kind of make the string higher, essentially. So yeah.
Okay. And the thing that I kind of find, so part of the reason that I play the shell, apart from it being my odd midlife crisis that it seems to have manifested in my life, but is that, again, I like the kind of origins of music technology and what that says about human ingenuity and invention. And for me, it feels like there's a real kind of direct link, in a way, between a very, very primitive musical instrument like the shell and a very complex musical instrument, because it's that same iterative process that humans have had over millennia, right?
For sure, and the origin of the harp, it was also very simple instrument, like a bow with one string, and obviously it evolved. So this harp is not that old in its form. It came about in 1812 or thereabouts. They're called double action harp, and before that it was also pedal harps. But then before that there were no pedal harps and lever harps and fork harps. There's so many different varieties, sizes, and species of the harps. And
it's very sort of similar shape to the piano. Right, in terms of like a grand piano, particularly.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the relationship between those instruments?
Well, there is this infamous joke about harp being a piano in a coffin, or is it the other way around? Harp in the coffin is the piano.
Yeah.
Is it that? Yeah. So the relationship with that. Well, first of all, we play a lot of piano music on the harp because we also use the same way of reading bass clef and treble clef. What other relationship do we have with piano?
Well, I guess like the sort of the soundboard. So that's the reason we're called. So the project that we have, which we're going to be writing and recording some more music with later this year. So watch this space. Is called Soundbox Ensemble. And the reason we came up with that name is I have all sorts of sound boxes, from shells to electronic stuff and trumpets and things. But you also have a soundboard, right?
Yes. So that is again another way of playing the harp. Oh, shouldn't do it with a watch. So in fact, we do have some pieces with that effect, and you can kind of do all the sorts of knocking and tapping.
So it's it becomes quite percussive and percussive
could
instrument.
Do, yeah.
Yeah. And those those kind of bangs and scrapes. It might not be easy to tell because this is quite a reverberant room, but there's no reverb on that, right? What that is the wood of the harp resonating the hit or the strings, obviously, as you do that. So could you just do that again and let it ring out?
Sure, I'll kind of approach it.
Can you do one more thing for me?
Sure.
Can you shout into it? So you can hear it's like a kind of built-in reverb tank, right? It just carries on. And actually, if you do that near a piano, particularly quite an old piano, in fact, probably the piano in Wilton's bar, it's a slightly detuned piano that's a bit knackered, like the piano I have at home. We have this kind of built-in reverb into our house, which makes everything feel a bit dramatic. You're telling off the kids, stop, 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 stop. It's quite nice. So yeah, the other way you can do it on a piano, because it's very much the same idea as Valeria says, is if you hold down the sustain pedal, so that's the pedal on the right foot. If you hold that down and then shout into a piano, it's built-in reverb, free reverb. Right, that's Valeria, by the way, on the harp. Let's have it once again.
Thank you.
So we're going to do one more tune with Valeria. Oh yes, thanks. We're going to do one more tune with Valeria, which is a tune that she wrote for our project Soundbox, and this is very much going to feature her, and it's going to feature the more percussive element of the harp. So just give us 2 seconds to get ready. Give it up once again for Valeria Clarke on the harp. Valeria Clarke. Right, I'm very pleased to say Valeria will be back with us in a bit. Now, the next guest, I'm going to bring him straight on because I know we went up a little bit late for one reason or another. He is an old friend of mine. We're going to talk about how we met shortly, but he is quite an unlikely guest for this show, which we're also going to touch on because he is an astronomer. He's the presenter of, one of the presenters of BBC Sky at Night, a fantastic science communicator and person. Please give it up for Chris Lintott, Professor Chris Lintott. There he is. I'll give you a mic. Here we are. Let me turn that on. Let me turn it on. There we go.
Well, thanks for participating in Give an Astronomer a Job scheme. It's very, very.
It's normally the other way round. It's normally, you normally invite me to stuff.
Do you notice that got applause? There's at least 3 others out there somewhere.
So I'm going to think about what we're going to talk about because, because again, you're not an obvious guest for a show about music, but we met actually. We're also another show that we do. What we have done in the past about music and science, where I've done the music for Robin Ince and Brian Cox's shows for a long time, and obviously we met there because you were on the bill and I was doing the music, and we kind of got chatting backstage about various things, and we realised that I love science and astronomy, but know very little about it, and that's kind of...
Yeah, and I know very little about music, which is why I'm here, but it's interesting to be on stage talking about something you don't know anything about. It's very easy to be Brian Cox and sort of point at... It looks easy to be Brian Cox, to point at things and, to be clever, but it's interesting to be on stage and talk about the things you don't know, and I have a weird relationship with music because it's a great passion in my life. It's how I relax, it's how I... let go, it's how I go out and see live music. It's the most precious thing, but I come from a family where both my parents are deaf, and so I grew up, and genuinely this is true, the only record in the house was a Cliff Richard record, and so that's what I was exposed to for much of my early life.
I mean, that's exactly the record that 2 deaf parents should have.
One day I should ask why and how it was acquired, but that's what I thought music was. It turns out there's more than that to listen to.
But just very briefly, you said something about being an expert there, and it's something you and I have talked about a lot. I think it came from you initially, where you were very passionate about not always... Like in science, I think, and in music, it's often what happens is you get this very kind of didactic, top-down. Yeah. Here's the expert, clever man talking about the clever thing.
Right, especially in jazz, right? Compared to it's got this reputation of you've got to really understand it.
And it's not. It doesn't invite new people in, and it sort of can push people away sometimes and be a bit exclusive. And I think so that something I try and do in the podcast again, if you've heard it, is in that genre tombola thing where I look at a completely different genre. Part of the reason I do that is that I have no idea about any of them. For example, the one that I've got to look at for the next episode, which of course I haven't thought about at all because the next episode comes out this Thursday coming, and I've got this tonight, which is quite... the next genre, anyone know what it is? Shout out if you've heard the episode. No one? Cowpunk. Cowpunk. So if anyone knows anything about cowpunk, please come and see me. So the question I have for you, Chris, is... Do you know anything about cowpunk?
No, I'm not an expert, you see, but I'm looking forward to learning on Thursday.
If anyone does know anything about cowpunk, please come and because between between today and Thursday afternoon, I've got to completely create from scratch a cowpunk track. So
you are saying cowpunk?
Cowpunk,
right?
Yes,
cowpunk.
as in moo.
Okay.
Yeah. Moo.
I think we've got the beginnings of a track here right now. This is great.
But you don't know anything about cowpunk.
I don't.
You do love New Orleans music.
I do. I've just come back, actually. Luckily, the American Astronomical Society had its conference in New Orleans, so I've been to lots of lectures and much music, and just hearing, sort of everything from the blues through to some traditional jazz to sort of... I managed to run into a second line, which I was actually out for a run and ran smack into a second line, so turned around and joined them and wandered through. As a sweaty Englishman at the back is exactly what you need, I think.
If you don't know what a second line is, by the way, a second line in New Orleans is it's basically a big parade they can happen quite spontaneously of musicians parading through the street and often ending up then at a bar and playing a gig. And it arose through the New Orleans tradition of funeral music, where the first line would be the mourners and the second line would be the band who would be playing this kind of mournful dirge music. And then as they got closer to the wake, they would kind of turn it into a big party, and that's one of the kind of origins of New Orleans music, which is a really, really important tradition.
Yeah, one of my favourite memories of your music, Steve, is that when you played, the Hackney Colliery Band played at the Barbican, and you led the audience at the end with playing Africa, obviously, out through the Barbican, and second lined and sort of went all the way around. And I said afterwards, that was amazing. It was wonderful to capture that tradition. It was wonderful to be part of it as an audience, to be invited. And Steve said, yeah, but they put the merch stand miles from the exit to this, so I had to lead the whole audience there.
We led 2,000 people to the merch stands. It was absolutely incredible. I loved it. So the thing with New Orleans music, just while we're there, I want to get something off my chest early on in this show, because this is going to come in later, I'm sure, and that is, I'm hoping that most of my audience know this, but do you know where to clap on the beat in a song? Seriously,
you can't. You know you've reverted back to being an expert on stage and telling people what to do, right?
This I'm very happy to be an expert in. Okay, I'm going to play a tune, and I'd like you to just spontaneously, whenever it feels right, clap along. All right? Okay. Let's see how it goes.
There's general discomfort in the room, I think.
I know.
Don't flee. It's okay.
Okay, let me just...
This is why there's two of us, so, I can reassure. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay, I'm going to do one for you, Chris. I can do one for you.
All right.
Oh, you've made a little boy very happy, Wilton. Mainly you have got that because which beats are you clapping on? 2 and 4. I mean, to be fair, I know there are quite a lot of musicians in. When you are clapping along to a tune with a kind of swing or backbeat, where this will come. We haven't got time to go into all this now, but the point is, when you're clapping along with music, mainly you want to clap on 2 and 4. Now, can we just try it on 1 and 3? It will be painful for the musicians amongst you. Yes, it's a learning opportunity. Here we go. Let's try it. 1 and 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. Ah! Everything inside me dies when that happens. So, right. Now can we try on 2 and 4? Yes, Wiltons. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind, right, for the duration of the show, please.
So that's actually what annoys you most in life?
That is the thing, genuinely, for most musicians that they cannot deal with.
It seems like a small thing. You know what annoys me
most?
You know what annoys me most in my professional life? Aliens, mostly. Because the thing is, we haven't found any. And the thing is, every time we find that we live in this glorious, vast universe that's much more beautiful than we thought it ever could be, and much larger than, frankly, it needs to be, and it's full of the most wonderful stuff. And whenever we find anything interesting, the entire world, mostly the internet, goes, "Is it aliens?" Oh, I don't care then. So, we found that there's we launched a space probe, it landed on Mars, it explored, it showed us that Mars used to be a wet world that was a bit more like the Earth, maybe perhaps once a home for life, but no, the internet discovered it, found a little rock that looked a bit like Bigfoot. It's not even big, it's tiny, and it's not life. We found there's a storm on Saturn that forms a hexagon at the North Pole that's been there for hundreds of years. Could be aliens making the hexagon. It's not, it's just wind. We found there's an asteroid that came from another solar system. It travelled through our solar system. We spotted it even though we've never seen one of these things before. There's a Harvard professor who says it's aliens, and it's not, it's just a rock, but it's an interesting rock. Anyway, sorry, it's your show. Sorry.
We've all got to get things off our chest early on. So if you see Chris, if you see Chris in interval, don't ask him about aliens. If you see me, do not come up to me and try and clap on 1 and 3. I'll hear it as 2 and 4. So, Anyway, we're going to move on and talk about why we got together. Because we do a show together sometimes called Universe of Music, where we kind of talk about music and space and the links between them. Because there are links between them, which we're going to get into a little bit.
I mean, just the news from this week. We've had spacecraft doing all sorts of things. There was the Japanese landed a little probe on the surface of the moon. It's called SLIM. It landed just yesterday and fell over. But before it fell over, it sent back signals and it released a couple of little rovers, one of which is going to hop around the lunar surface and one of which genuinely is built by a toy company. It's a round ball, it's going to roll, and then it's like a transformer. It can develop legs and wander around.
The Japanese, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course it's the Japanese
We've
making that
reached
stuff.
the let's just do this because it's fun.
Yeah.
Actually, the point of the mission was to land precisely. It was within 100 metres of where they were aiming for. So to show that you could touch down carefully. And there was an American private mission called Peregrine that had a less good time. It launched about a week ago, and there was a problem with the propulsion, and it was supposed to go to the moon and didn't make it. It crashed back into the Pacific Ocean a couple of days ago. And that was particularly sad because on board there was an album by a friend of yours.
There was.
Right?
In fact, I think Steve, are you in tonight?
Excellent. Well done.
So for those of you who, again, I covered this in the show. I spoke to Steve in the show a few weeks ago, and he had his album for his band called 1201 Alarm was going to be the first album on the moon, and instead it's the first album to have burnt up over the Pacific Ocean.
But it's a very good album.
It's still
listen.
yeah, it's a very good album.
It's called Moonshot, right?
It is.
Yeah. You're not renaming it. Sorry, that's probably a bit soon. There you go. All good record stores on any planet. That's
right.
The key thing. But the other piece of news I wanted to mention was that just today, the Dragon spacecraft docked with the International Space Station, carrying a couple of European astronauts and a couple of tourists, actually, who are going to go and live in this metal box for about a week. And whenever this happens, we get this sort of dramatic footage on the news. This is why news producers love astronomy, because the images are great and we get the stuff. So if we can cue the movie of, this is a previous mission, but it's the same spacecraft. If we can get the movie up. Tom at the back, with any luck. We lost the projector, maybe. There we go. Yeah, those are some stars. That's good. Next slide. There we go. So this is the Dragon spacecraft. This is actually an undocking from the space station. So this is, if we can run this, it's kind of dramatic. Everything in space happens more slowly than you'd expect. But when you see footage like this, I mean, it's kind of impressive, but it's missing something, right? So let's restart it, and we could try and fix this, right? Okay, so I'll cue the movie, and then Steve, see what you want to do. Ready? Okay, go. Release the dragon. See, that's much better, but I think we can, let's just restart again. I think that, you were talking about reverb and so on, and I think that, space, for some reason in science fiction, space has reverb, right? This is just true. So can we do this properly? All right, ready? Release the dragon. It's my favourite thing. Spacecraft's still going, Steve. So this is the point of view for the trumpeter who's missed the flight to Earth.
Nothing. Oh, I know, why. Start again. Okay.
This is the furthest we've got through a show. Let's restart the movie. We're going to do it 2 more times, so if we can restart. Actually, you could just play it. There we go. Right, go! Yeah, it's good. I mean, the only problem with this is very 1970s space, right? This is big budget, government's doing important things, and like I said, this is partly a tourist mission now. The space station is sort of the world's most expensive hotel. We're seeing billionaires and their mates going into space, so I think we might need if we're going to enter this era of tourism in space, we need a slightly different tone. So good. So one last time then, if we can get let's redock the dragon. Yeah, it's very easy on screen, right? Release the dragon. It's much better. See, you've got your space cocktail on board. It's not at all terrifying. You're going to burn up in the Earth's atmosphere. Lovely and relaxing. Space sickness is a thing, but never mind. There we go. We should get you to space, Steve. That's really. But the problem with this, of course, is that these spacecraft are small metal boxes, so they sound awful inside. So if you've heard Chris Hadfield, who I know you had on.
Yeah, again, we had the astronaut Chris Hadfield on a couple of episodes ago, and I talked to him about the acoustics in the space station, because of course I did. And he was, because of course, if you don't know Chris Hadfield, he was the astronaut who recorded David Bowie's Space Oddity on the space station, which is quite cool. And we were talking about what it's like, and he basically said, ironically, given that it's a line in Bowie's song, that it does sound like just playing in a tin can. You know, it's very sort of dead, nothing much to it. And so yeah, it's like quite it doesn't really give much atmosphere. It feels like, you know, playing in a very kind of deadened room because there's so much equipment everywhere. And just briefly on the, you know, the kind of reverb thing is a bit of fun, but it's something that I'm quite obsessed by when it comes to music, because I think a lot of time when people think about music, they think about the different elements of music, rhythm, harmony maybe, pitch, melody, that kind of stuff. What you don't necessarily think about is, I guess, like the acoustics or the sound design, if you like. And that might sound like a kind of nerdy thing, technical side of music, but actually it's really intrinsically linked to how music works and how we hear and understand music. You know, whether we, what we're kind of perceiving it as, where we're perceiving it as being. So this room, it's quite hard to play to get a kind of very dead, flat sound in this room, because it's quite a big, reverberant room. But you can artificially add reverb if you're recording stuff, as people do in recording studios, of course, these days. They will often be in quite small booths, so a vocalist might record in a little box, very, very muffled box, and then you add artificial reverb afterwards. And it's kind of a weird thing to do, because you know, you think, why does it sound better when it sounds like it's being sung in a church or something? And it's because there's something that it gives it a kind of sense of grandeur that I think ties back to our early past. And one of the reasons we like music in the first place is this idea of ritual and ceremony. And again, it comes back, like almost everything does, people, to the shell, right? Because if you imagine the shell being played in a living room, just sounds like a noise. A shell being played. So I got a great privilege to record a load of shells in the Natural History Museum, in the main hall of the Natural History Museum, overnight a year or so ago, which was an incredible thing to do. And if you play, like, let me just get this big shell out, right? If you play this in here, it will sound nice because it's quite a reverberant room. So you can hear it ringing out. In the Natural History Museum, that reverb lasted about sort of, what, 20, 30 seconds? It was absolutely amazing. But what was even more extraordinary was that this shell, this tiny little baby one, one of the smallest ones that I've got, is this one, somehow the natural kind of resonant frequency of the Natural History Museum, that Hinsey Hall, the main hall there, with the whale skeleton in, just somehow matched this, right? So the note that this plays just somehow matched that room, and the whole room just sort of lit up. And it was about 1 a.m. In December, freezing cold in there. And it was incredibly magical, and it really transported everyone there back to ancient times. So just play it. So quite a short reverb time in here, but again, just the natural resonance of that room, like a big cave would have been back in the day. I mean, genuinely, there are only a few of us in there doing this recording session, and one of the people who was helping out started crying. And as you played one note on this, and so I think there's something incredibly powerful, and it's really important to think about things like sound design when we think about music, as almost as important, I would say, as melody or harmony or rhythm. So there we go, and we're gonna sort of move towards the end of the half now, because I think coming back to that ancient idea of us sitting in caves and wondering about our place in the universe, I think something we've talked about quite a lot is the fact that we're both almost, not to kind of simplify things too much, but it feels like we're both reaching for the same thing. Like we're all trying to find our place in the universe, right? We're all trying to get our heads around this idea of being conscious beings in a seemingly unconscious universe is a very odd thing to try and understand. And I think for me, my kind of route into that is through music, is through playing music and making music and trying to do that. And for millions of people like me in my past, and for you and millions of people like you in your past, it's looking up and trying to work out.
Yeah, it's a very natural thing, I think, to go out and look at the sky. I was showing. We ran an event in Oxford with some local kids last night, looking at Jupiter and the Moon, which were next to each other a couple of nights ago, and then they've moved apart. But just that thing of noticing that the Moon has moved over night to night, noticing that the phase has changed, noticing that the stars come round year by year. It's sort of that connection to the cosmos that comes from looking, like a connection to a musical world comes from hearing or listening and paying a little bit of attention. You don't need a big telescope to enjoy the sky. You don't need actually to be anywhere other than in a city like London to pay attention and get that connection to the cosmos.
There's that sense of the sublime, I think, isn't there? It's just the sense that there's something much bigger than us out there, and obviously when you're looking up at the universe, there is, but almost often for a lot of people, when you're playing or listening to music, there is as well. Playing, listening, making music, composing, whatever it is. I think it's just that feeling of like connection to our past and our future, and feeling like we're part of something. It's part of something bigger somehow.
Yeah. No, I like the when they were choosing music to go on the Golden Record, which was this LP that was sent out on the Voyager spacecraft, which had left this spacecraft. And it's mainly an art project, right? Aliens aren't going to find this thing and go, I have a turntable, I shall put this on. But it's kind of fun if they do. Should have sent a mini disc, damn it. But they were choosing music, and there was somebody involved in the project who argued really strongly that we shouldn't put Bach on it because that's showing off. As in, that's the point of our species, is we've got that far. There is Bach on the record, though. There's some Louis Armstrong. There's some old blues as well, which is lovely, and then music from around the world. Again, and Jimmy Carter.
Really? Oh, Jimmy Carter, of course, yeah. So I talked about this with Steve when he was talking about his record going to the moon, and we talked about the Golden Record, and the fact that, I think I'm right in saying this, I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm not, but the Beatles weren't included on this Golden Record for legal reasons.
That's right, they wouldn't clear copyright.
Yeah, because their lawyers wouldn't sign off the fact that they didn't know where it was going to end up, and that they were contracted within the known universe. Music lawyers, this has gone too far. It's left the solar system, guys.
Or what do the Beatles know? This is the question. They all have. The Beatles all have asteroids now. There are asteroids named after all of them. Yes.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and Frank Zappa has an asteroid.
I mean, he should have an asteroid.
Of course he does, yeah.
I think he's probably in an asteroid right now. Anyway, we're going to, speaking of this Sublime Beautiful, we're going to invite Valeria.
Let me just put one more image up.
Yes,
so if we can go, so this is an image taken with the Hubble Space Telescope. So this is one of the deepest images of the cosmos that we've got. So this is the ultra deep field. So everything you can see in this image, with the exception of 3 points, is not a star but a galaxy. So each blob here is a system of a few 100 billion stars. And the light from some of these has been traveling towards us for more than 13 billion years, so almost all the way back to the beginning of the universe. And I think this thing about music expressing what we can't do with words is encapsulated here by two feelings I get when I look at this. This is an immensely vast and distant cosmos that inevitably makes us here on Earth feel really rather small in the face of this immensity. On the other hand, we get to sit on this planet and look out and wonder and feel awe at this sight. So we have this two feelings at once. We have this sort of being lost in the cosmos, but also aware and conscious of it. And sometimes I think we give the impression that as astronomers we understand that at some deep and spiritual level, and I do not. I don't have any better understanding of what it means to be on one planet around one star of 100 billion in a universe with 100 billion galaxies, each of them with 100 billion stars, than you do. But that was the brief that I thought Steve and Valeria could try and express with their music. So I shall hand over to them.
Oof. Tough brief. Thank you once again to Chris Lintott. He's going to be back in a bit. So we thought we were going to end this half by doing something that musicians have done for millennia, and improvising. So we've got that deep field image, which I think is going to stay up there and do some things shortly. And Valeria and I are just going to take a moment to sort of improvise a little kind of meditation to send you on your way to the bar and meditate over some beer. So, we're going to do this and finish, and then you can go to the bar, and then we'll be back in about 20 minutes. So here we go. Thank you very much. Well, welcome back. Did you have a nice interval? Yeah, okay. Well, welcome back to the second half. Now, in this part of the show, let me just switch mics. In this part of the show, some of you may recognise these people because has anyone seen the band Hackney Colliery Band before? Yeah, a few of you. We did a week's residency here, in 2022, I think it was, called Explorations. I've got 2 mics between 3, just to show us that. In which we experimented with a lot of new music, which is going to go towards our new album, which we're going to talk about shortly. And we played with lots of collaborators. For those of you who haven't heard of us or seen us before, we're a kind of... The name Hackney Colliery Band is obviously a nod to the traditional brass bands of Britain and the great heritage they're in. But of course, it's a slightly tongue-in-cheek name, but it's also kind of paying homage to that great tradition. We kind of imagined what it would be like if there were a traditional colliery band, but in Hackney, with all the different kind of music that goes on there and the different cultures and the different styles that happen there. So we play a lot of different styles of music, and I'm going to talk to these guys. Don't worry, there's going to be a lot more music from these guys and more, but I'm just going to have a little chat with these guys, because these are, of course, the kind of powerhouse rhythm section of Hackney Colliery Band. So let's give it up for Luke at the end. Olly in the middle, and Ed on the tuba. So when I was putting this show together, I thought it would be really interesting to get the band here, but not the whole band, just to do a kind of little stripped down version and talk to, because it's really, there's 9 of us who are all on stage at any one time, but the kind of, I guess the kind of creative team, us 4, and Ed newly, but also for many years, Luke and Olly and I have written all the music. So the 3 of us kind of mainly write the stuff and put it all together and arrange music. So I'm just going to chat very briefly about some of that and about some of the stuff we've got coming up. But I guess firstly, the thing I wanted to just ask about was why, I mean, I know the answer to this partly, but I just wanted to ask about why we did the split kit idea, because there's 2 drummers, right, which is not an easy, too many in Ed's opinion. Boom. We decided to do this early on in the band, and maybe Olly, you could sort of tell us why that was.
I think I remember one of the first gigs was an outdoor gig, or I think we were at Spitalfields Market, if you know that place, which is an amazing market, and it was a walking gig. I think we were marching around a bit and then doing some stationary stuff. But in order to do the walking bit, we needed to cut the drum kit in half, and someone take sort of the low end, the low frequencies, and bass drum and toms, what have you, and someone take the snare drum. So I think that's originally where it came from, and it just enabled us to be a bit mobile, whilst still keeping that the variety of frequencies that we needed to produce the grooves, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also something we didn't invent, definitely. Like when we first talking about it, Luke, like one of our early inspirations was New Orleans, right? And actually you went there quite early. I've only been there recently, and I'm going back next month, but you went there quite early on in the history of the band, I think, and were quite inspired by some of the drumming there.
I don't know if it was that early on, but obviously, as much as it's not like we invented it, New Orleans do it. They've been doing it for 100 years or however long before we thought of it, invented it. But I think a lot of it is based on that, the New Orleans marching band tradition, which probably was based on some kind of strange classical, pseudo-classical music before that.
I mean, I think it comes from that melting pot in New Orleans, doesn't it, where you've got European music meeting the blues, essentially. So you've got European marching bands meeting the blues.
It's a good time to bring Ed in, because you tell us the Sousa, that's obviously a marching tuba, so everyone who wants to ask him what that is, That's a tuba, but he normally plays a sousa. That's the wrapped round one, yeah? Go on. Here we go.
So the history of New Orleans marching bands.
Yeah, here we go, yeah. He knows.
In a very short way is, John Philip Sousa was this guy who created this instrument called the sousaphone. Now, I couldn't bring it today for various reasons. And it's basically like a marching version of a tuba that he invented and named after himself, the sousaphone, modest, although the same as the saxophone, Adolphe Sax. And he was bored of, when he was writing all these marches for people walking around the streets, of the tubas pointing upwards and then being not heard. He couldn't hear his bass lines and they weren't loud enough, so he invented this thing that you wear and that points forwards. Now those marching bands were up in the north. This is during, segregation and slavery. And as slavery was abolished, the marching bands and the instruments would move down from the north of the country all the way down to the south, the deep south, like Louisiana, which is where New Orleans is based. And you'd have all these surplus of old instruments, ancient instruments being co-opted and used for the new music that was around, that people were then now allowed to play because they were freed slaves, and be able to play vibrant music that was, again, like you guys said, a mishmash of all the different cultures and sensibilities that were drawn to New Orleans as a port town, and use these brass band instruments that were sousaphone, drums, split kit, trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and that's kind of where the history of it came from.
Yeah,
sure.
So it's a really, really interesting history, and as we've said, we were very inspired by that early on, because obviously it's fantastic music. Chris and I talked about it in the first half, and I'm going to be featuring it on the podcast quite a lot over the coming months because of my trip there. So I'm going to be exploring that. But I think it's fair to say that we moved away from that style, at least, fairly quickly. We were very inspired by that, but certainly, speaking for myself, I was very keen that we didn't become a kind of, middle-class London white version of this amazing music from New Orleans that came from a very different place than we do. So much as we were kind of inspired by that, we've been very much trying to do our own thing with it as well. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as what's rock music. Rock music is English people taking American blues and rock and and earlier forms of that type of thing, and just doing it a bit differently. And I think that's what you've got to do. So obviously you can be inspired by a lineup, whatever the instrumentation is, but then you're going to do something different. You're going to have different material that you're inspired by. So obviously we've taken tunes by Prodigy, great British bands like the Prodigy, or So I think that's what you do, isn't it? As a musician, you take things, and it's all in a big melting pot. And so we've taken that instrumentation. We've taken a lot of us are jazzers. A lot of us have got that background, but then maybe doing modern music, pop music, and then it turns out people like that. People prefer the pop music than tunes that were written in 1937. So who knew?
Yeah. So we're going to talk just very briefly, because we're going to play with Valeria shortly for the first time. Actually, the first time that we've done a proper collaboration live with the harp. But we'll talk about that in a second. But we've got a new record coming up, because we've done, I think, 5 albums now. We've been going for a fair while, and the most recent album was called Collaborations Volume 1, which we did in 2019. Which, again, we were really trying to embrace this idea of being kind of genre agnostic and not needing to stick to, okay, well, you're a brass band, so this is how you're supposed to sound. That started a long time ago with us, when we, as Luke says, when we started doing things like music by the Prodigy and so on. And then with our own music, the tune that we played to start with there was a tune called Jump Then Run. And then that was from our Sharpener album. And then we've kind of been exploring that more and more over the last few years. And with Olly, maybe just talk a little bit about Collaborations Volume 1 and then Volume 2 that's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you're a band like us and you start off doing the kind of party scene or what have you, that's a whole load of fun, and then you just sort of think to yourself, well, where do we go from there? And then you realise you can go anywhere. So you start to look at who you might like to appear on your record, and you try your best to get those people on it. So we were super lucky to get Mulatu Astake, if you know, the Ethio Jazz king, on the last record, which was incredible. And then just branch out from there. And this record really, I think, is going to be super interesting. We've got a whole bunch of incredible singers, instrumentalists from all walks of music involved, and I think it will showcase the kind of diversity that we can bring to it. We can move away from the brass band party thing, which is super cool, but at the same time, hopefully we've got something more to offer.
Yeah, I think it's something that we love, playing the tune that we did at the beginning, and then we'll do some more of that in a bit. But I think it's just, as Olly says, showing the variety of what modern brass can sound like, and kind of reconceptualising this idea of what a brass band is. I think something that's really, really important, and we're gonna do that now. As Olly says, the next record is definitely. We thought the last one was pretty out there with Ethio jazz, spoken word, and all sorts of stuff. But this next one has got harp. It's got shells, it's got a lot of vocals, it's got all sorts of really interesting stuff on it. And we're going to do one tune from our Sharpen It album, and we're going to do then one new tune, both with Valeria. So yeah, I think this is a fairly typical HCB situation where Luke's looking at his phone while we do this, but I think that's because he's checking out the music that we're about to play, because we haven't had much of a chance to play it today because it's been a tight day. But we're going to do Reawake. There we go. That's why he was looking at his phone. I assume, to be honest, it's often if Luke's looking at his phone, it's because he's playing chess.
No, I had to delete it off my phone. I'm too addicted to it. No more chess.
No more chess. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen you play chess actively in a gig, luckily. But
well, you haven't been paying attention. It's always playing chess.
Okay, this is a tune from our Sharpen It album. As I say, it's going to feature Valeria. It's just going to take me a second to set up. This is, again, it really showcases when we started properly, I think, digging into the idea of different variety in kind of sound worlds, what a brass band can sound like. This is a tune called Reawake. Thank you very much. Right, that was a tune called Reawake from our album Sharpener. Give it up once again for Valeria, who's rejoined us on stage. Now, we're going to do one more with this little unholy quintet, harp and rhythm section and trumpet, and then we are going to do something different, as you will find out. So this is a tune that's on the new record. This is the first time we've played this together. It's a sort of a premiere, I suppose. It's going to be on the new album, Collaborations Volume 2. And of course, since Collaborations Volume 1, my obsession with playing shells, as you may have noticed, has got a little bit out of hand. So we couldn't make a record, it felt like, without sticking some shells on it. And so this is a tune I actually originally wrote for one of the shows I was supposed to be doing with Robin Ince during the pandemic called Sea Shambles. It was supposed to be this big show at the Albert Hall, all about the sea. It was going to be amazing guests. It was going to be. I do a lot of scuba diving and underwater photography. It's going to be. I was so excited about it. Then the pandemic happened, of course. So instead, we did it a kind of online version, and I wrote this tune. In fact, Steve, who I mentioned earlier, whose album Went to the Moon, was on the original recording of this that I made for that. So yeah, thank you very much to Steve. And so was Valeria. So then I decided I was really enjoying playing this. And I wanted to do something a bit more with it because I was really enjoying the kind of unusual nature of it, and I hope you will too. So it's going to be on the new record. It is called Fluoresce because, as I say, I do a lot of underwater photography, and it's inspired by night diving at night, and you wear these kind of lenses over your goggles, and it means that you shine a particular type of light on the coral and the fish, and it's really, really trippy. It's like what I imagine being at a rave is, having not been at a rave for 25 years. But it's kind of fluorescent, and some of the corals glow, some of it doesn't. It's absolutely amazing. I'd urge you to check it out. It's very little understood phenomenon as well. So really interesting, and I wrote a tune based around that. It's called Fluoresce. Give it up for the Filament Choir. The Filament Choir. Amazing. Incredible. Look at this. Amazing. Now, before I forget, I must move this mic. I meant to do that before I left the stage. Let me do that before I forget and things get crazier. So, thank you so much for being here, guys. Little did you know there was a choir amongst you.
I was watching the first half, beautiful first half, Steve, and I was thinking, I wonder if people are wondering why everything's squashed on that half of the stage, because there are a lot of us, as you can see.
Yes, lots. And so we're just going to take 5 minutes and chat about this amazing thing. And I don't know if anyone else wants to speak as well. I've got one more mic, which I can dig out, or you can pass it around.
Yeah.
The main thing I wanted to talk to you about, because we've known each other for a while and done some different projects together, and I think we've got a kind of similar aesthetic in terms of embracing lots of different musical traditions and being. I think it's a challenging thing to do, I think, and to do respectfully. But for me, we were talking about it the other day when we were planning this, and we were saying how, as Luke alluded to earlier, as musicians, it's really, I think, important to kind of honour the traditions that you're working with and to try and kind of get inside them. And I mean, have you got any thoughts on how to do that? I mean, it's a very challenging thing to kind of dig into.
I mean, for me, I realised I didn't introduce any of the songs. Hello, I'm Osnat, by the way, and this is Filament Choir, and the first song we sang, well, a kind of combination of songs. Emily Roblin is a composer who works a lot with community choirs, amazing inclusive music, really. The second song is taken from a Filament show, so Filament is also a theatre company, and it felt a little bit more traditional in kind of what we think of as classical, kind of contemporary classical choral music, and that's called Earth Makes No Sound. So we've been in the stars quite a lot in the first half, and a lot of our music is actually tonight really about the ground and the earth. Mm-hmm. And the last song is a South African song in Zulu, and it's kind of I guess for me it's always understanding what they mean. Mm-hmm. And it's a song about kind of collecting water in the morning and waking up and getting on, and again, like caring for the earth. So I think that especially when and we've sung music from lots of other places, I think as long as I've got a respect that it's not always my tradition. Mm-hmm. There's some different musical traditions which are mine and from my own heritage. I'm really happy to share them, but I've sung with other, especially with South African musicians and singers, and they're really generous with their music. Mm. It is for sharing. One of the sort of second or third songs is shared by my colleague Rathy, and Rathy grew up in Canada, so I'm speaking for you. She could just pass the mic and tell her, but a very early song. She taught us, and she went to Namibia and South Africa when she was younger and learnt directly from musicians there with her kind of choir community from Canada. But I then learnt this song and then met South African musicians, and we were just jamming and saying, we sing this song. Or we started singing it. We didn't say we sing this song. We just started, and they just joined in the most joyous way, as opposed to a judgmental, why have you got my music way? Mm-hmm. And I think that's testament to that generosity of going, we know it comes from you, but mm-hmm. we're enjoying it and we're respecting it and understanding things like the movement is so much part of that tradition as well. We can't. I mean, I don't think if anybody sings in the audience, you'll appreciate this. I think music like that, you can't sing it without making it inhabit your whole body. Otherwise, you're not honouring that as well, mm-hmm. and you don't make the right sound. You don't enjoy it in the same way. When
I was talking to Claude Deppe, who's a wonderful South African trumpet player and composer, on a few episodes ago, he was saying the same thing. We were talking about Mbakanga, which I still can't quite say, which is from the yes, it is very hard. A South African musical tradition, and he was saying exactly the same. He was saying that that it's music is for sharing, and as long as it's done respectfully and not exploitatively for money or anything like that, it's something that should be shared. I just want to talk to some members of the choir. I don't know if anyone wants to chat. What I wanted to just ask particularly, this is quite an unusual choir in that it's a combination of quite experienced singers and very, very new singers, maybe singers who've never sung before. So I don't know.
Do you want one of each?
Yeah, I think so, maybe. And I think it would be nice to sort of talk about how those things combine, because again, something I talk about a lot on the podcast, and something I feel very passionately about, is breaking down the barriers between amateur and professional musicians, and the fact that community music can do that so effectively, and that there shouldn't really be a distinction, because in our distant past and even in most of our present around the world, there's not really a distinction between the professional classical musicians and amateur musicians, so-called, because yes, sometimes you get paid, sometimes you don't. As a musician, that's also true, and so the lines are quite blurred. And whilst as a professional musician, obviously you want to stick up for the rights of professional musicians, at the same time, music is is something that we all inhabit and all own, and we all should share. And it's not like these people can do music, these people can't. So yeah, I just wanted to sort of maybe have a couple of voices from, and one of whom, in fact, could be, because this is the first time ever that I have shared a stage.
It's a historic moment,
with my
Steve.
own partner. My own partner, Joe Caird, is on stage. So yeah, So I wonder, since you're there,
Sure.
So I mean, what? When you because you sort of surprised me. It came out of the blue almost when I said, "Oh, wasn't that starting this choir?" You said, "Oh, right, okay," and you decided to join. Why did you leap at that chance?
I think because being I've always enjoyed listening to choral music because of that thing of a wall of sound. And if you're in a choir, you're in the wall of sound, and it's just phenomenally beautiful. And so I'd never done any performance of singing. I've sing plenty, like to our children and riding my bike, but just
it's
even
true,
at
it's really embarrassing.
But even at the first rehearsal, in being in this group of people, and I didn't know any of the songs and didn't know even my range. I didn't know where to sing at all. But just stopping and listening to all these amazing voices is just so beautiful and a joyful thing. And I think everyone should do it probably, because it would be good for you, be good for your soul probably.
I think you've got vacancies, haven't you? Oh, what a coincidence. That's really interesting. I think yeah, you're right. Being part of a musical ensemble is really something that everyone should try at least once if you can. But interestingly, we were talking about it the other day, and I said, "Are you looking forward to the gig?" And you said, "Sort of, but I don't really like performing. I don't do it for the gigs. You do it for the singing and for the being in the."
Yeah, it's not for you guys. No, the sound is lovely, and there's a kind of, obviously there's like an adrenaline thing, but I certainly don't get off on the adrenaline thing. Mm. I don't want to look at any of you. It's nice to be in the music, and it's nice the idea that it's being appreciated. But if you're with a group this big, if you're just in rehearsal, everyone's enjoying it and everyone's listening. We do an exercise at the beginning of every rehearsal where we're all sort of, it's a kind of physical warm-up, and then Osnat leads us kind of doing humming, and then we're all just improvising and singing. And I don't even know how long it lasts. Like, it feels like it could be like an hour, or it could be 5 minutes, because it's this like crazy dream space where beautiful sounds are coming out of everyone's mouths and everyone's listening, and yeah, just that is so gorgeous to do. Amazing.
Well, I wonder if you could pass the microphone along if anyone else wants to chat. Yeah. Oh, there we are. But before I talk to you, sorry, just from long experience, I'm going to give Hackney Colliery Band guys their call now, because if I do it on cue, are they lurking? Or they? Yeah, this is what I thought. So they are lurking. Okay. So we're on next, guys. Spoiler alert. So yeah, just in case. I just imagined a 5-minute silence while we wait for them. But so just what's it like? Because you're a professional. Could you just give us a bit of your background about what you do musically?
So I'm a singer-songwriter. I play piano and write kind of like soul, jazz, indie kind of mix of music.
Amazing. And what made you want to join this choir, which has got a mix of both both new singers and experienced singers?
I think, like Joe was saying, there's something about like community and singing with other people, and not having to do that for work or doing it as like something that you're trying to like pursue. Mm-hmm. There's something really enjoyable about being with other people and sharing like a musical experience. And like, it's just joyous. Like, it is honestly the best. We rehearse like Mondays. It's the best start to the week, which is being able to like hold space with other people who just want to have fun and sing and do something that's like kind of no pressure. There's no like mistakes, because there's a space to like explore musically. And I think that's something that we don't often get to do outside of like gigging, and it has to like sound a certain way or be a certain way, or classical music, which is like scored and very specific. So I think there's something nice about kind of, just like musical exploration, and that can be anything.
And is there something about, like, as a more experienced musician, working with less experienced musicians and kind of, I don't know, giving them a helping hand or lending your experience, you know, sharing your experience a bit?
I think there's actually, like, because we don't learn anything, we learn very little from scores, so everything is kind of like taught by ear. I think it puts most people on like a equal playing field of being able to kind of just do like learn through call and response. So there isn't a pressure of like, cool, I've got like the musical skills of being able to read scores and being able to like sight sing. Whereas, yeah, I think the fact that we're all kind of able to go, cool, Oznight will sing this thing, you sing it back, everyone's like on the same page. I guess when it comes to like doing the score reading stuff, we're all pretty good at helping each other out and recording bits and like singing together. Yeah, it's like a little family, which is quite nice.
Amazing. Oh, we'll give it up once again for the Filament Choir. Don't go anywhere, guys, because you're staying on now. Because... Now, we did have Oznigh's previous choir called the Roundhouse Choir on the last Hackney Colliery Band record, and in fact we did this next tune with them at the Barbican a few years ago, and we're going to do it again for you now in this miniature Hackney Colliery Band form. I like to say that, you know, now that we have this platform, this space to you know, share information and music, it's nice to support up and coming artists. So we're going to do a tune now by a band who are my hot pick for 2024. They're a band called Nirvana, so do watch out for them. They're going to be absolutely massive. You heard it here first. Right. Nirvana. The Filament Choir, give it up once again. Woo. Okay, we're coming to the end of the show. We are at the end of the show. I want to say, just as things are moving around, I just want to say now, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Have you had a nice time tonight? This is a bit of an experiment. Obviously, it's the first one of these shows. I have done a show called Origin of the Pieces here before a few years ago. Oh, I've got to get my breath back after that. Sorry. But it was quite different from this, and this is a kind of first experiment. The first time I've done this kind of live podcast variety format. So please, I'd love some feedback about it. If you want to drop me an email or something on social media or whatever, or come and see me in the bar afterwards and let me know if you enjoyed it, because I'd really like to do more things like this. So that will of course involve you coming back and you telling your friends and everything else. So please, if you've enjoyed it, please let me know, and especially tell your friends if you like this sort of thing and you haven't heard the podcast. Please do check it out. It's called Steve Pretty on the Origin of the Pieces. And meanwhile, I think we're going to invite my friend Chris back up to the stage. Yes, give it up for Wilton's Music Hall, by the way, for this amazing venue. It's incredibly important. Venues are really, really suffering at the moment, and I think it's really incredibly important that we do our best to support them whenever we can. So please, thank you very much for coming tonight, and do spread the word about this and all sorts of other shows, the amazing things they've got going on here and in all, especially independent live venues. It's incredibly important. Don't just go and see, big bands are great. Please do go and see those big shows, big bands, but please do try keep supporting the sort of smaller, more middling size stuff as well, because it's absolutely essential that you do, otherwise we won't have it for much longer. Right, we are going to do a thing now. I'm going to hand over to Chris briefly. Could I have that mic back? Where did that mic go? Oh, here it is, yeah. I'm going to hand over to Chris, because we're going to end the show with a little bit more space, I think.
We'll be quick about this, but one of the things that I talked about, the vast universe earlier, but one of the things we've realised is that our galaxy is full of worlds. Almost every star you see, as I mentioned earlier, if you go outside and look up tonight in the clear London air, the stars that you see all have planets going around them. And this is new news. We didn't know this until a few years ago. And one of the consequences is that, I think, let's see, there's 100 billion stars in the galaxy. Probably most of them have at least 3 or 4 planets. So we basically all get a set of planets each. So you should pick yours quickly. So I want to tell you briefly about my favourite, which is a system called K2138, which is a system of 5 planets. If we maybe have a diagram of it that can come up. Yeah, skip that, keep going, 2 more. There you go. So 5 planets, they're called B, C, D, E and F, and we're not very good at naming things, but at least they're in the right order. But this is a special system because they're what's called a resonant chain. So there's a pattern to their orbits. So every 3 times B goes round its star, C goes round exactly twice. For every 3 times C goes round, D goes round exactly twice. For every 3 times D goes round, E goes round exactly twice. And for every 3 times E goes round, F goes round exactly twice. This tells us something about how they formed and moved in the system, but it also makes them a musical instrument. It does, because this 3-to-2 ratio, this 3, every time the 3 goes round, 1 goes round, 3, the next one goes round twice, etc. What that reminds musicians of course, is an interval in music called the perfect fifth, and that is that exact same relationship in the perfect fifth. Now, we won't go into that now, exactly what that is, but we'll cover some more about things like intervals and harmony and stuff in later episodes of the podcast and live shows. But basically, what you need to know is that all of these planets, if you know anything about music, all of these planets are in perfect fifths with one another in terms of their orbits. So we're going to skip to the next thing now, next slide, because there is a fantastic scientist who's a colleague of Chris's who works in Toronto called Matt Russo, who's also a musician and of course works on this exoplanetary data and has made music out of these things. There's a kind of whole argument about whether you should sonify science. Often it's done in slightly sort of not very sort of proper ways, I would say, but this is a proper, this relationship is a very much a valid, true thing. So we are, I think, in some sense, hearing the sound of it when we do this. Now, what we're going to do is you can see the outer planet there. We're going to allocate that. Every time that flashes, Ed on the tuba is going to play a note. Okay, you're going to play a B, and then, yeah, so B. Yeah, so that's one orbit, right, of that outer planet.
And then we're going to go around again. You'll hear me do it again.
This is sped up, by the way. They don't go this
Yes,
fast.
they don't go this fast. Exactly. And then I think we've got some basses who are going to join Ed on that. Yeah, so basses, if you join Ed when that comes round. If you want to join in the audience, please feel free to as well. The next one up is a fifth harp, which is, of course, an F sharp. So that's the beginning of Also Sprach, of course. There we are. So there we go. There's the B again. And it's coming up. Here we go. And then the next one up is a fifth up from that. Okay. And then as we go round in the penultimate one in, that's a fifth up from that, which is this. And the final one is for the sopranos, and that's this note.
In the beginning, there was great potency but little form. Thenceforth, there has been a long and fluctuating adventure towards harmonious complexity of form and towards the awakening of the spirit into unity, knowledge, delight, and self-expression. And this is the goal of all living, that the cosmos may be known and admired, and that it may be crowned with further beauties. Nowhere, and at no time as far as we can tell, at least within our own galaxy, has the adventure reached further than in ourselves. And in us, what has been achieved is but a minute beginning, but it is a real beginning.
The show. Thank you very much. Chris Lintott on the talking and thinking. The Filament Choir on the singing. Valeria Clarke on the harp. The Hackney Colliery Band rhythm section, Ed Ashby, Olly Blackman, Christie on the drums. My name is Steve Pretty. Thank you very much. Now we went up a little bit late. So we've got not much time. Let's not faff around with going off and pretending to see if you want another one, and then we'll come back on. Let's not beat around the bush. We've got one more little thing for you if you would like it, because that was a very little sort of minimal ending. Very thinking. Let's go out with a party, right? Let's go out with a little party. Okay. Now for any of you who've seen Hackney Colliery Band before, you've probably seen us do this. In fact, earlier. I realised as I was doing it, this was a mistake. I put a pretend gun to my head when I said we'd end our sets with this. And now we're going to end the show with this. And it is this. So, can we have the house lights up, please, Tom? Can we have the house lights up, please, Tom? While we're doing this, please give it up for Tom and Jeff on the technical side of things, sound and lights. Tom and Jeff. If you want to sing along, it goes like this. This bit goes like this, very simple. Sing along, we can hear you, we can hear you. Stand and move, now you may, now you may. Here we go. Just the choir, here we go. Audience, let's see you. 2 and 4, 2 and 4. Yes, 2 and 4, I love you. Please stay in touch, go to the website, sign up to the mailing list, all of that. Thank you very much. Filament Choir, Valeria, Chris, Hackney Colliery Band. My name's Steve Pretty. Thank you very much.
Give it up for Steve Pretty, everyone.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to go get a beer. I'll see you there. Thank you. Yes.